Hi there and welcome to my kitchen. This is Jason Champagne of Native Chef LLC. Today our recipe is going to continue to focus on how our ancestors ate. A lot of vegetables, a lot of lean meat. I'm a big believer that these foods will heal us, but we have to eat the right foods. So today we're going to be doing a roasted pork tenderloin, and we're going to be also doing a savory sweet mashed potatoes, and we're going to be doing a asparagus and mushroom skillet saute. So we'll first get our pork marinated and put it in the oven, and then we'll move into working on our sweet potatoes, and then we'll work on cutting the vegetables, and then we'll have our skillet saute at the end. And that's the most important thing, is to always cook these in order of the way they need to be cooked. So we want to do those vegetables at the very end. So got a lot to do. I sure appreciate you watching. I want to thank again the Southern Plains Tribal Health Board for this opportunity to present from my home. So got a lot to do. Let's just get started and let's have fun today. First thing we want to do is we want to get some rosemary, fresh rosemary cut up, both for our skillet dish and for our roasted pork tenderloin. And pretty easy to do. Just pull off the leaves. That's the first thing you want to do. Grab the stem at the top here, and then kind of pull down, and we want to get these leaves off of the stems. And then once we have the leaves off, we'll just cross chop these and try to finely chop this as best as you can. And then next up, we'll get a little bit of fresh thyme here, and same thing with the rosemary. Just kind of grab the stem and then pull these leaves off. And if there's a few stems in there, that's not bad. You can use a few stems. It's hard to get all the stems out, but just get a little bit of this fresh thyme, these leaves off here. And then we'll cross chop these. Try to cut them as finely as you can. Now with our roasted, our tenderloin here, take the time to get some of this fat off of here, some of this tough silver skin. And then once it's trimmed, make sure that you dry this really well with a paper towel, and that'll help us get some nice roasting going on instead of steaming with too much liquid. And then what we'll do is we'll squeeze a little bit of oil on top here, kind of massage that in on both sides. And the oil will act as a glue to hold on to the seasoning. So now we'll just kind of season everywhere with fresh rosemary. And then we'll put some of our fresh thyme. Some salt. And some black pepper. I'm going to take an oven-safe sheet pan here. I'm going to spray it with some pan spray just to help out with dishes later on. And we'll put our roasted pork tenderloin right on top. And I'm going to preheat my pan to 425. We want to cook this for 15 minutes at 425 initially. And just kind of firm it up, make sure that it's kind of stuck, or kind of in a roll, I guess you could say, before we put it in there. Next up, we'll cut up our sweet potatoes. We want about 1-inch pieces, and they're not all going to be exact, but we want similar pieces. We don't want gigantic pieces and then really tiny pieces. So try to make them as similar as you can, and be careful when you're handling sweet potatoes because they are full of water and they're harder to cut. So if you have very minimal knife skills, please be careful with these. Now I've moved the sweet potatoes to a pot here. We want to add enough water to kind of about a half to an inch above the potatoes here. So I want to add the water, and we're going to boil these until they're fork tender. Next up, we'll start cutting some of our vegetables here, and I've rinsed these off really well, and I like to leave these bands on because we want to get rid of this tough part on the bottom. It's about an inch on the stems. That really hard to chew, so I like to just cut that off right now. And then from here, we can take off our rubber bands. And then we're just going to cut these into 1-inch pieces. Now we'll chop up some fresh red onion for our saute, and we just need half of one. And what I like to do is either cut across this ways or turn it at an angle here and cut them this way. And we want this finely cut pieces, thin as you can. The tenderloin's been in there for about 15 minutes now, so what I want to do now is reduce the heat from 425 to 400, and we'll let it go for about another 13 to 15 minutes. Now we'll finely mince some garlic, and we're going to do garlic both for our asparagus saute, and then we're going to be doing some garlic for our sweet mashed potatoes. And two different techniques here. This one's partially for both, so we're going to finally chop some for our asparagus saute first. And then this part of the garlic we're going to put in our sweet potatoes. We want to mash it and kind of create a paste. So basically what you do is you take the back of your chef knife and you start smearing it onto the cutting board over and over and over again. Next up, we're going to cut up some scallions, and mainly we want these green parts, but use some of the white too. And these are going to be used both for our sweet potatoes and as a garnish. Next up, we'll quarter some mushrooms. I like brown mushrooms, but if you prefer white mushrooms or any other kind, that's just fine. Don't wash mushrooms. What happens is they actually soak up water like a sponge, and whenever you saute with them, a bunch of moisture will come out. So if you have to clean them, just use a paper towel. And then we'll just quarter these. Don't make them really small because they're going to lose some of their volume whenever we're cooking, and we don't want them to disappear in our dish. So I'm just cutting these in half and then into thirds. And then we'll cut up just a little bit of fresh parsley for our garnish. It took about 20 minutes. Maybe different for you, but it takes about 20 minutes on my stovetop to get these fork tender or knife tender, and that's what we want. So now what we want to do is we want to remove these to a colander, and we want to let them drain fairly well. They don't have to be all the way drained because we're going to need some liquid to mash them. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to just drain them really well in a colander. The pork tenderloin's done here, and we want it about 155. You don't want it to cook it too much. It's going to be too tough. So basically we're right at where you want it. And the best way to know this is to invest in this meat thermometer. So we're right at 155. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to capture some of this evaporating moisture. What's happening now is after you take it out of the oven, there's going to be some carryover cooking, and moisture is going to be coming up and leaving the pork tenderloin. So If we put a piece of tinfoil down like this, it's going to capture that moisture and it's going to keep it nice and moist. And we're going to let this rest. It varies on how much you want to let it rest. You know, you can let it rest for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even up to 20. Today I'm going to let it rest a little bit while work on the sweet potatoes and the asparagus saute. And so basically when we let meats rest like this, they let the juices settle in the meat, and it's just much juicier and tender and much easier to cut whenever it's rested. So we'll just let this rest for a while and we'll get started on our mashed sweet potatoes. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and mash these up with the potato masher really well. Once I have it really mashed pretty well here, I'm going to add some sour cream. Low-fat sour cream. We're going to add that garlic that we really smashed well. We're going to add our green onions, and we're going to add our butter and a little salt and pepper. And we're going to continue mashing this really well. And then once it's all incorporated, you got some really nice colors going on. The sour cream made it a nice color, and you got some of those green onions coming through, and you can just smell the fresh garlic that we put in there. It just smells great. So now what we'll do is we'll remove this to a serving platter. And then once in our serving platter here, we'll top it off with some fresh parsley that we cut up here. Give it a nice extra little bright color green right on top here. And then what I'm going to do here is I talked about using your oven as a hold box. So I'm going to turn my oven on to 180 and I'm going to put these in there, and they'll be waiting on us when we're ready to eat. Now we'll start our vegetable saute, and again, like I said, we want to do the veggies at the end so that they're nice and fresh and crisp, and you know, the meat can always wait on us, or potatoes can definitely wait on us, and utilize that oven as a holding oven. So I'm going to add a little bit of oil here, and then I'm going to add the asparagus at the bottom here, and then I'm going to put some of these red onion right on top, and the red onion will kind of cook from the steam that's coming up from the asparagus here. So what we want to do here is we want to cover it. We're going to let it cook for about 2 minutes. So this cooking technique we're doing is basically we're steaming / sauteing these, and what, you know, the number one ingredient in the asparagus is water. So whenever you cook it at a high temperature, water is going to try to evaporate, but we're trapping that to help cook it quicker. And it's also going to partially cook our onions. So it's been about 2 minutes here. We'll remove the cover. And what I want to do here now is add our fresh garlic and our fresh rosemary. And we're going to stir this. Okay, now we're going to add our mushrooms right on top. I don't want to stir these on the bottom because I want them to still hold some volume. Like I said earlier, they're going to lose a lot of their volume in this dish. So we just kind of want to keep them on top here. And again, the moisture from coming up from out of the veggies below it are going to partially steam them. And we're going to cover this. We're going to let it go for about another 2.5 to 3 minutes. Now you can see after about 3 minutes, 2.5 to 3 minutes, how much those mushrooms lost some of their volume. And that's what we want. That's why we cut them a little bit bigger. And they're going to lose quite a bit of their moisture. So we'll give them one more toss here. And then we'll add our little bit of salt and pepper, which is completely optional. Give it another toss, and then we'll plate. Now we'll slice the pork tenderloin, and it's still really warm. It's been resting for about 15, maybe closer to 20 minutes, and that's what we want. We want it to be able to handle this first of all, because it's going to be pretty hot. But now instead of just carving right straight down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my knife at an angle here, and I'm going to cut these pork medallions, and they're going to be a little over 1/4 of an inch thick. And then I'll just put these pork medallions right on top, and then we can kind of just shingle them out just a tad bit. Really nice presentation. Then we'll take some of our scallions here, and we'll just make sure some get on top here for a nice garnish and another additional flavor. If you're a fan of sweet potatoes, you're really going to love this dish. It's a different way to use sweet potatoes, and myself being diabetic, and a lot of us out there that are diabetic, sweet potatoes are a really good option over other potatoes. So try to have them once a week, and if you like this recipe, try to have it every week or every other week. And you know, if you're looking for a new recipe for Thanksgiving with sweet potatoes, this would be a great option. Another thing to remember is, you know, you got to practice those knife skills, and you know, the key to healthy cooking, I think, is knowledge. You know, you have to know what you know, foods are good for you and what foods are not good for you, and you have to know how to cook, and you have to know how to make food look good. And part of that is the knife skills. I tell people, you know, if you have basic to intro knife skills, you know, practice with a soft fruit like pineapple, or like cantaloupe or watermelon. Practice, you know, being comfortable using a knife and making cuts that are similar. That's basically what I do with my cooking. Is I use colors, and I try to make the shapes of the food similar, and just a lot of colors similar, and then just the plating techniques. You know, it didn't take hardly any time at all to cut up some fresh parsley to put on top of this. That gave it a great color. And the scallions is a nice addition to any dish, and it's a good healthy vegetable to use. So just remember to utilize your oven as a holding oven if you need to do that. The vegetables can always be cut ahead of time. They can sit at room temperature for you, so that you know, they're waiting on you. So what I try to do is I try to use my cutting board one time, and I cut everything I'm going to need to cut up for my recipes that I'm going to be doing. I cut all those up once, and I'm done with my knife, and I'm done with my cutting board. And you know, you may be watching and think, well, he has a heck of a lot of dishes to do. If you're not comfortable using bowls like I do, use paper bowls. At least they'll dispose you know, into the environment if you use paper over like you know, styrofoam. But you know, try to use some paper plates and paper bowls, and that way you can get some of these vegetables cut ahead of time. And you know, the number one thing I learned in culinary school was, you know, to start, it's called mise en place. You know, get all your ingredients first, right? That's the shopping. Spend the time cutting everything up in that recipe. That's the prep, the mise en place. And then the fun part is cooking, because you don't have to stop cooking. You know, you can keep cooking right in front of you. You got everything you need. You don't need to stop and go into the refrigerator and then hurry up and try to cut up, because we want to have a comfortable experience when we're in the kitchen. That's the whole point. I think a lot of people have bad experiences in the kitchen with too many dishes, or they undercooked chicken, or they overcooked turkey, and everything didn't go well. A lot of people just need to realize that your failure in the kitchen is the most important thing that you need to do, because that's the only way you're going to learn. I've failed thousands of times in the 38 years that I've been cooking in my life, and I learn every single time. And I still make mistakes, and I still learn from them. So what I want to share with you is, if you think you're a bad cook at home, you're not. The best cooks at home are the ones that learn from their mistakes. And like I said, I learn something every time I make one. So I had a great time cooking today. I hope these recipes are helping you at home, and can give them a try. Practice those knife skills, and just try to have fun in the kitchen. Try to get your kids more involved. Try to get them hands-on food at a younger age. That'll pay off in the long run. So until I see you in the next video, stay safe, stay well, eat well, and always remember to have fun in the kitchen.